Which running backs should be in your lineup and on your bench heading into week 8 of the fantasy football season? We're about to tell you. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre, he's Chris. We're here as always to help you set those winning lineups. We're going to talk about every running back that matters from every game. First, don't forget bye weeks are still in effect. Only the Chiefs and the Chargers are on vacation in week 8. Now let's go over those running backs you don't need to worry about. These guys should be in your lineup no matter what. Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette, Derrick Henry, and Josh Jacobs. All right, Chris, let's get things started with the Thursday night game and a very interesting backfield, and that would be the Baltimore Ravens when they go to take on Tampa Bay. Look, we're going to leave Leonard Fournette in the must-start category for now, despite what happened last week. But what about Baltimore? Now, all of a sudden, again, a different leading rusher. That's right, Gus Edwards is back, and now he looks like almost a must-add, but is he a must-start?
I mean, normally I would say, no way am I starting Gus Edwards against the Buccaneers, but what just happened to the Buccaneers? I mean, Chuba Hubbard and D'Onta Foreman had good games against them. I still worry a little bit for Gus Edwards. It's a short week. It's on the road in Tampa. I can't say sit Gus Edwards because, I mean, like there's just not a lot of startable running backs these days. I'm going to say Gus Edwards more of like an if you need him kind of guy this week.
Yeah, I can't go must start because, look, what I'm worried about, and I talked about this on the waiver wire video, is what we see with Gus is what we saw with J.K. Dobbins. They throw him right into the fire, give him all these carries right away, and then he kind of slowly wears down because he isn't used to all that. You know, that's what happens with running backs. The more work, the less effective they get sometimes, unless you're Derrick Henry. I think you can start him because he always has touchdown upside, just like Dobbins did, but I wouldn't say you have to start him just because of what happened last week. All right, here's another couple of fun backfields. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos when they face the Jacksonville Jaguars. We still got Melvin Gordon there. I guess technically the starter, according to the coach, although does that really matter? What do we do with Melvin Gordon these days?
I can't start Melvin Gordon. I know the Jaguars not a strong run defense, but I mean, what are you really hoping for with Melvin Gordon? Like, just that he falls into the end zone and gives you something, and even then just has very little ceiling, so I've got to sit Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he's a bye week desperation fill-in at this point. I know injuries keep happening, so if you need a running back, I guess you can start him, but that would be only in case of emergency. I don't think we can feel much better about Latavius Murray. I don't even know if it matters if Russ Wilson comes back. Latavius Murray, is he just kind of the same, a flex if needed?
I mean, not even a flex if needed for me. Neither of these guys are. Like, I get it if you're in some deep league and you're extremely desperate, you have no other options, but that, like, I'm sitting Latavius Murray. No, thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe he'll score a touchdown, but yeah, that's about it. So I'd say RB3 if your RB1 and 2 are both injured or on bye. And then, well, this one maybe is clearing up. Travis Etienne looking really good. You think he's breaking out? Is he almost a guy you have to start?
Yeah, he's definitely has broken out. I think you got to start him. It's a tough matchup. For as bad as the Broncos' offense has been, the Broncos' defense is still elite and still very good, especially against the run. But look, he's getting the touches. He's getting pretty much the entire work in this backfield. I think you still have to start him.
Yeah, I think he's a strong RB2. Yeah, the matchup's not good. That's what's making me say not absolute no-brainer must start, you know, depending on what kind of options you have. But yeah, it looks like he's the guy. He's one of the leaders in yards per carry. I think he's a really good start. You should start him if you have him. Panthers going to take on the Falcons. We got a new duo in town, another pair of running backs. Look, maybe you want to start here. What about Chuba Hubbard? I mean, don't think that we expected him to be fantasy relevant this season, but here he is, the starter, and he scored a touchdown, and he looked okay. Do you start him against the Falcons?
Yeah, I think he's a fine start this week against the Falcons. Not a tough matchup. We know the touches will be there. He does have the ability to catch passes, so I think he's a good start this week.
Yeah, I thought he'd be more just of a pass-catching back. He didn't do that, but he didn't need to do that against Tampa because they were winning the whole time somehow. I think he's fine. I think you can start him if you need to. One thing to note, guys, he did kind of leave the game banged up. It doesn't seem like it was a serious injury, but something to monitor if he's on the injury report this week. But, you know, Chuba Hubbard looks like he might actually be startable now on a weekly basis. I actually feel better about Deontay Foreman because the Falcons, you feel like they're going to be able to run the ball. Foreman, I think, will be the leading rusher going forward. So I like Foreman this week. I think, to me, I'm definitely starting.
Yeah, again, another good start this week as, an RB2 type. Yeah, should get plenty of chances against a bad Falcons run defense. Good start.
And then on the other side, Falcons are falconing. I guess Tyler Algier, he was okay. He scored a touchdown, but do you have interest in him this week?
This is just what he'll always be. He has to score a touchdown. He scored a touchdown and got you, 11 PPR points? Like, just no upside here and really no floor, so not starting Algier.
That's exactly right. He's not, I thought he would be more of a pass catching back too, but he's not. It's touchdown or bust. I can do better. I'll pass. Bears going to take on the Cowboys. A tough assignment for David Montgomery. Where does he fall as far as start sit this week?
Kind of where he usually falls for me, unless he's in just smash matchups. I think you kind of have to start David Montgomery because, the snap percentage is so high, the touches are so high, but it's not a great matchup, but still think you got to go with him.
Yeah, I think he's still a solid mid to low end RB2, especially in this landscape. I think he's still a solid start because he catches passes. It's not the Cowboys offense is running away with games these days, so I think he's a solid start. Well, just when you thought Khalil Herbert maybe didn't have any relevance, he might be the guy again based on Monday night. So is Khalil Herbert a guy you would trust against the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, it's not a great matchup, but I think, we know he's going to get the work. He's going to get the usage. He's got a chance to score. So I think he's a solid start this week.
Yeah, he's really a guy who doesn't need a ton of touches because he's got that big playability. So not great. It's not a great matchup. It's not a great offense, but he is startable if you need him. And then for the Cowboys, Zeke all of a sudden sprung back to life. He's scoring touchdowns. Going against the Bears, you can't feel too bad, right? He's at least startable.
Yeah, he's at least startable this week because, again, it's another good matchup like he had last week. And another guy who's basically touchdown dependent, but I feel good that he'll probably get a touchdown in this game. So you can start Zeke this week. The
Bears have been a run defense that keeps giving up touchdowns. Why not? Look, Zeke is not going to be a guy who rips off 100-yard games anymore, but he can get in the end zone. And the Cowboys, it's a decent offense. I feel it's pretty good about Zeke this week. I think you can start him. And then Tony Pollard, kind of the same. Like, he's always going to be flexible, so I think you could flex him if you need him.
I think he's a good flex this week because we know he's got that big play potential. And again, there will be chances for him to score, so a good flex this week.
Dolphins taking on the Lions. They barely survived Sunday night against the Steelers. Raheem Mostert looked good, though. Man, ripping off runs of 10-plus yards. He's one of the leaders in the NFL in that. You got to start him against the Lions.
Yeah, against the Lions, must start Raheem Mostert. I can't believe I'm saying it, but yes, you got to start him.
And then on the Lions side, what do we even do with DeAndre Swift? Man, is he going to play? What is this going to be? Let's just pretend he does play this week, which he should play this week. He had a week off. He had several weeks off. Do you trust him against the Dolphins?
Yeah, if Swift plays, you have to play him, especially in this matchup. The Dolphins' run defense it's not like the worst run defense, but it's certainly not a top-notch run defense. So if Swift plays, you have to play him.
Yeah, let's just hope that happens. But again, that's why you have Swift. If you got him for whatever reason, you bought low, you drafted him, you're holding out that he's a stud running back. If he plays, you play him. And then let's talk Jamal Williams, of course, with or without. If Swift does play, does that kind of keep Williams in that startable range?
Barely. Like just very touchdown dependent. So Swift plays, I'm not playing Jamal.
Okay. I thought you might say he has some value. He does get goal line work. We don't see Swift necessarily finishing the whole game, getting a ton of snaps. I think Williams is startable in this matchup, but I'm not going to say he's an absolute must-start if Swift plays. If Swift doesn't play, I kind of feel like you have to play Williams.
Yeah, really let down last week, 2 fumbles, but I still think, in this matchup, if Swift is out, you can play Jamal Williams.
Cardinals at the Vikings. Eno Benjamin let us down when we expected a big game against Seattle, and then when we expected nothing on Thursday night, he came through with 92 yards and a touchdown. What does he do this week against the Vikings? And again, not sure the status of James Conner, but let's just pretend it's Eno Benjamin's backfield again.
He's startable because he's getting the touches, but look, Keontae Ingram started to kind of eat into his usage last week. But I still think if James Conner is out again, Eno Benjamin, given the landscape we're in right now, is startable.
That's one thing, not to pour cold water all over, but he only got 12 carries, and yeah, he had nice fancy numbers, but he had that one kind of big run, 30-something yards, and that touchdown came late because it was a high-scoring game. It's not like he was amazing, so I don't get carried away. This is still a Cardinals offense. It's not that great, so I do think he's startable, though, because it's not a bad matchup. If James Conner does come back, where does he land? Because I gotta think he might be at least sharing some time, but do you think that you could put him in the lineup?
James Conner always is what he is to me. He's a start him if you need him kind of guy, touchdown dependent. He will catch some passes, so he has more upside, than guys like, who really like Tyler Algier, who we talked about, who just needs a touchdown. So startable if you need him.
Yeah, I'd be very wary, but again, maybe you just don't have anybody with more upside, so I guess you could start him. I'd prefer if it was only in a non-PPR league, though. And then Dalvin Cook, the week off, fresh legs. You roll him out against Arizona.
Yeah, there's nothing to worry about with this defense. Shouldn't scare you. Got to start Dalvin Cook.
Absolutely. Dalvin Cook should have a pretty big game. Arizona's not terrible against the run, but Cook has been looking good lately. You got to put him in your lineup. Raiders going to take on the Saints. Look, maybe it took too long, but finally we put Josh Jacobs in. Then no doubt you have to start him. Looking like one of the best running backs in the league. So Alvin Kamara not there yet. It's been very up and down. How do you feel about him this?
I think you feel good about him no matter what. I feel better about him with Andy Dalton because we've seen in these 3 games with Andy Dalton, he's catching a lot more passes than he was with Jameis. But still, Raiders not a run defense you should be terrified of. So I think Alvin Kamara a good start this week.
Yeah, very good start. Looking a little bit more like the Kamara of old. Still not the Saints offense of old, but I think we're going to see more of what we've have seen the last couple of weeks, which is pretty good. So definitely can feel good about Kamara this week. Patriots taking on the Jets, divisional rivalry here. Jets defense took a little step back. So what do you think Ramondre Stevenson will do against the Jets?
Not as good a matchup as he's had the last few weeks, but not a terrible matchup. I think if you've got Ramondre Stevenson, though, he's still a good start.
I think he's always going to be a good start because this is always a team that's going to want to run the ball. And look, I really doubt they're going to need to pass a lot to keep up with the Jets, especially without Breece Hall. Very sad there. So, Ramondre Stevenson, good start. Damian Harris, I think he's also a pretty good start.
I agree. Doesn't catch quite as many passes as Ramondre, so don't feel quite as good about him. But still, like you said, the Patriots are going to run as much as they can. The Jets aren't going to force him to throw, so Damian Harris a good start. In regards to the New York Jets backfield, news of James Robinson being traded to the Jets did not break until after we had already recorded this video. Unfortunately, due to our schedules, we were not able to come back together and re-record this part. So I'm here to let you know, based on this news and based on the assumption that Michael Carter and James Robinson will likely split the touches in this backfield, we have downgraded both players to nothing more than start them only if you need them running back.
Steelers at the Eagles. Najee Harris, still the guy for Pittsburgh, but still not really impressing us in terms of fantasy numbers. How do you feel against a really tough Eagles defense on the road?
Not great. I'm not going to say you have to sit him. I'm just going to say he's more of a if you need him kind of guy because the volume is still there and he does have the potential to score and he's catching some passes. So if you need him, you can start him.
Yeah, he's kind of settling to, he is what he is at this point, just kind of a low-end RB2 at that, maybe not even, but you can start him, but he's definitely not a no-brainer. And then Miles Sanders, well, what do you think he does against Pittsburgh?
Miles Sanders does what Miles Sanders does. He booms or he doesn't boom, and you pretty much have to start him every week at this point because the offense is great. The defense gives the offense lots of chances, gives him positive game script. He's got chances to score. He's getting the touches. I think you have to start Miles Sanders.
I kind of do too. And honestly, against this Pittsburgh defense, you saw, like I just said, Raheem Mostert, breaking off some big runs over and over. Obviously, this defense not what it was. I think this is a game where Philly will be in command. So I feel like Miles Sanders is a really strong start this week. Titans at the Texans. You got Derrick Henry on the one side. You might argue Dameon Pierce is also don't care the matchup. You have to start him. But do you feel that way?
Yeah, Titans run defense isn't some shutdown run defense, and he's getting tons and tons of opportunities. So you got to start Dameon Pierce.
It's funny because Lovie Smith, head coach of Houston, he said something like, we have to get Pierce the ball 20 times a game. And guess what? After he said that, they gave him the ball exactly 20 times. And he did just fine, as he's been doing all year. I mean, he's Mr. Consistent, which is funny for a rookie. So, I mean, yeah, you got to start Pierce. Nothing to be scared about in this matchup either. The Commanders going to take on the Colts. Well, Brian Robinson kind of settling into the lead role, but not really showing that he's a no-doubt must-start guy. I mean, this offense is what it is at this point. Do you feel good about Brian Robinson against Indy?
I mean, I feel okay. Like, he's another guy, if you need him, you can start him. Just, he's getting the carries, and he did actually catch a couple passes, which was nice to see, but just not a lot of upside. Really kind of needs a touchdown. So if you need him, you can start him.
I mean, I feel better about him this week than I did last week, against Green Bay. But again, I can't feel like I have to have him in my lineup, so it depends on your options. I think he's kind of a solid high-end RB3/flex. And then Antonio Gibson, I don't know how longer we're going to even have to talk about him, but Antonio Gibson, any fancy relevance here?
I mean, only if you're desperate, and even then, not really. Like, he does look good when he gets the ball, he doesn't get the ball that much, so you can't start Antonio Gibson.
No, I mean, he's touchdown or bust, and his chances of a touchdown aren't even that great. So you'd have to be really desperate at this point. All right, and the 49ers and the Rams, well, we have completely different starting running backs here, and not what we expected. We got CMC in San Francisco, assuming he gets more close to a full workload this week. But does Jeff Wilson still have any involvement here? Is Jeff Wilson on the radar at all?
Not for me anymore. I mean, you got to think Christian McCaffrey is going to be playing 80+% of the snaps this week, so not starting Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, I don't think the matchup even matters. You can start Jeff Wilson. I mean, he might still get some carries here and there, but there's a reason they traded for McCaffrey, and it's not because they love Jeff Wilson. So, no, he's definitely off the map now. Just a handcuff. And then Darrell Henderson is the guy because Cam Akers is not. So how do you feel about him going against the Niners?
Not great. I mean, start him if you need him, guy, because it's a tough matchup. Not a ton of upside for Darrell Henderson. This offense doesn't give him chances to score. Start him if you need him only.
I don't feel too bad because, look, this Niners defense has not been great. There are a lot of injuries here. Henderson, though, I actually feel less great about the Rams offense and their offensive line in particular and their commitment to the run. So I can't put them higher than what you said of start only if you need. All right, we got the Giants and the Seahawks. You got the number one running back in Saquon Barkley, and you get a guy who honestly might wind up top 5 despite only starting the last couple of games. That is Kenneth Walker. How much longer before he's a start no matter what?
I mean, if he does it this week against the Giants, I think we got to put him in there because, Chargers, we knew he was going to have a big game, but you got to start Kenneth Walker. If you have him, you got to start him.
Look, the Giants' run defense really isn't that great either. Kenneth Walker, if you have him, you might have the guy that is going to help win your league. Congratulations. So Kenneth Walker, there's no reason that you shouldn't be starting him this week. Packers taking on Buffalo. This should have been a really big, important game for both teams. At this point, Green Bay looks kind of like they're on life support, but Aaron Jones doesn't. I don't know how to explain this, but Aaron Jones is the only guy doing anything on this offense. Is Aaron Jones, though, against Buffalo, a guy that you feel like you have to put in your lineup?
I'm not going to say have to, but I think he's a good start this week because it's probably going to be a game where the Packers are losing again. They're going to have to throw it a lot. We know Aaron Jones can catch passes. Not expecting a 2-touchdown game again against the Bills, but I think he's a good start this week.
Yeah, I mean, we have to temper expectations, right? This is a very different situation on the road against Buffalo, but I mean, you see what he can do, and I don't know why he's getting all the touches now, so he's a solid start. And then A.J. Dillon is, why? Like, what happened to A.J. Dillon?
I don't know, and you can't feel good about A.J. Dillon this week because they're going to have to probably throw a lot. It's against the Bills. You got to sit A.J. Dillon.
I can't explain why all of a sudden he's just been faded. You can't start him, at all. There's no way you can start him, especially in this matchup. And then what about Devin Singletary? Still the guy in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, if you need him, you can start him. You just never know. I know there's some research out there saying, like, when the Bills are in really close games, that's when Singletary is involved. And when they're, blowing teams out, he's not. And this will probably be a blowout. So if you need Singletary, you can start him.
Yeah, he's never a guy you can feel great about, but he's never a guy you can completely dismiss either. So he's just going to be always kind of on that flex radar. Start him if you need to. And then end the week with Bengals at Browns. You know you got Joe Mixon in your lineup. You know Nick Chubb is in your lineup. What do we do with Kareem Hunt? He's also just kind of faded into the background this year.
We hope he gets traded, right? But outside of that, I don't think you can start Kareem Hunt. I mean, yeah, he always has a chance to score like he did last week, but just giving you almost nothing outside of that, I can't start Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, he did find the end zone. I know some positive regression was coming, but this is a tough run defense, and it is kind of touchdown or bust for him at this point, which is hard to believe. So Kareem Hunt is only a desperation start right now. All right, now you know which running backs should be in or out of your lineup for Week 8. Don't forget wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, and everything you need to help win. Check out our Week 8 playlist to help you set those winning lineups.